Let's talk to Britain's top promoter, Frank Warren. Hello, Frank.
Good morning, Gary.
What did you think of the fight?
Oh, well, it wasn't a fight, was it? One guy showed up, took his purse and went home, and that's what it was. I thought Audley Harrison was disgraceful.
Carl Froch, I don't know whether you just caught him, he said he should buy a one-way ticket now to Australia and we should never see or hear of him again.
Well, he's got a one-way ticket, but that's back to the States where he's living, and he's going back, a much richer man than he came here. And Carl Froch, when you hear from Carl Froch, who actually, I agree with what Des says, is a warrior, and I've spoken to quite a few fighters and texting whatever during the night and this morning, and there's not one fighter that's not said any different than what Carl just said.
Yes. Why is it, though, that the public were caught up in all the hype? And, most people that I know said, you're going to watch the fight? And, I paid for it last night, paid per view. And had I not had to be down here this morning, I would have gone up to Manchester and bought a ticket to watch it. Why do people get caught up in it, Frank?
Well, so did I. But, the fact is, it was a hyped fight. Audley Harrison's the guy that has always promised, never delivered. I don't know what he's doing in there in the first place. Anyway, he's ranked number 6 by Boxing News in Britain. He's not even in the top 3 best heavyweights in Britain. But here's a guy in there gets a chance of a lifetime, and doesn't even do anything on the night. They say they threw one punch. Right? I missed that one as well. He did not try in any shape or form, and that's a disgrace to any fighter who gets an opportunity like that. But the fact is, it was hyped. He talked a good fight, and said all he's going to do, and there were people who got caught up in it. It got a life of its own. It crossed over from being boxing to being to the general public, and people started believing this.
Yeah, given all your experience, were you suckered into it even for a second?
No, I never thought for 1 minute Audley Harrison. I promoted him a couple of times. And if he couldn't beat Martin Rogan, who's a honest, decent pro, but 38, 39-year-old guy who's a part-time cab driver from Belfast, and struggled with him, how on earth was he going to beat David Haye? And I'm not saying David Haye's the greatest fighter in the world, but it was always, to me, it was always a mismatch from the start. But the two guys made a lot of money out of it.
Give us your take on David Haye's comment about he could have won it earlier, but he had money and his family had money on it winning in the third round. Now, let me stress, we're not suggesting for one moment there's anything wrong with that. But what do you feel about boxers betting on their fights?
Well, I've got to be honest. First of all, I have had bets on fights. I've had bets with Mickey Duff in the past on fights and other promoters, and you are under the board regulations allowed to, if you want to make wagers and place the wager with them. That's side stakes and so forth. However, for a boxer who's promoting, I think, who's actually in the ring as well, I think it's unacceptable, because, for example, if I'm a punter who wants to have a bet on the fight, and there's a guy in there who's saying that he bet for the third round, and I bet for the first or second round, I'm going to feel slightly aggrieved about that. It just shouldn't be allowed to happen. It's not as though they're not getting a fortune for fighting in the first place. How much do you want?
Yeah, Carl Froch made a sensible point, though, that he said that, had David Haye seen an opening in the first or second round, he would have taken it, which is true, isn't it?
Well, I thought there was a lot of openings in the first, but no, you didn't throw any punches. No one can tell me that you watch a fight for 2 rounds, and David Haye hardly threw a punch in the first 2 rounds. So, that's a bit of a nonsense. And as to talking about, you take your time because the guy's 3 stone heavier. Well, so what? Does that mean because the bigger or better? Young Mike Tyson and young Evander Holyfield, they were 15 stone fighters in the heavyweight division when they started out.
Yes. Are you saying then that the Boxing Board of Control, should instigate a rule that promoters and boxers like David Haye shouldn't do what he did last night? Well,
all I would say, if I was a member of the public and that happened, I don't think I'd be too happy about it. If the Board of Control, I'm sure they'll, on the facts he's commented on that, they'll make their own decision. But I don't think it looks good for the game or David Haye if it's true that he had that bet.
There has been loads of criticism about last night's fight, so a final view on where you see the sport of boxing. There was excellent coverage on Sky. It was pay-per-view, as I said. They say 700,000 watched. I suspect it was maybe 500,000. As excellent as the programme and coverage was, and it was very good, had it been on terrestrial television, there would have been anywhere between 7 and 10 million. Boxing does need a higher profile, but it's unlikely to get one, isn't it?
Well, I don't agree with you, Gary, because, you look at that, you just said why the public buying this fight and why they're watching it, it's because of all the coverage was in the newspapers, in the media. So it's had a high profile. Unfortunately, it was over this particular fight. But you had last night 70,000 people watching a fight in Dallas with Pacquiao. We did a Magnificent 7 show back in September, sold out. We've got a show in Liverpool coming up on December the 11th. That's sold out, more or less sold out. And, I think boxing is in a healthy state. Of course we could do with some terrestrial TV backing, but unfortunately it's not happening at the moment.
No, the reason I say that, yes, it was a sellout last night, and you say your show in Liverpool sold out, but I'm talking about actually in terms of a TV audience, right? Let's say it was 700,000 people last night. That's minuscule. If BBC One or ITV had 700,000 people last night at 9 o'clock, my goodness, people would lose the jobs, if you see the point I'm making.
Well, I accept that point in one particular case, but then again, Manchester United and Manchester City last week was going to be a fantastic game. It turned out to be a bore, and that doesn't stop people watching football.
That's true.
And the other side of the coin is that 700,000 people paying 15 quid equates to 10.5 million quid. Do you think that ITV or BBC would have paid 10.5 million pounds for that? And if they did, I think they should be agreed.
Well, and that's where the problem lies, isn't it? I mean, 700,000 people at 14.95. Yeah, I'll take a bit of that action. Frank, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Got to say, Frank Warren, absolutely spot on with pretty much everything there, I think, including his view on the betting. You say Audley Harrison won't be back on terrestrial TV. I think he might be. He's got a choice, actually. Terrestrial TV would be Strictly Come Dancing. I think last night was his audition. Or he could be on QVC or one of the shopping channels if he stays on satellite, because he can clearly sell any old rubbish to anybody, and he deserves a job.